You see, my parents never really believed in my passion for media-related jobs. They always insisted I focus on my studies, claiming that pursuing a career in something as uncertain as media would be a waste of time. I knew deep down that I had talent, that my creative skills and passion for writing, design, and digital media were more than just hobbies. But my parents never acknowledged that. They made it clear that my future was in academics, and that's all they cared about. Throughout my school years, I struggled to meet their expectations. I was an average student. My scores were decent, but far from the perfection they demanded. My parents didn't see any value in my creative pursuits. To them, my interests were just distractions from achieving the grades they thought were necessary for success. The breaking point came when I received my mid-year report card during my senior year. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't enough for them. My father was furious, berating me for not trying harder. My mother looked at me with the kind of disappointment that felt heavier than words. That night, they sat me down in the living room, their faces stern and unyielding. "If you can't even take your studies seriously," my father began, "then maybe you don't belong here." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart pounded and my chest tightened with fear. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You need to go," my mother said, her voice cold and final. "We can't waste our time and money on someone who doesn't care about their future." I was completely blindsided. Tears welled up in my eyes as panic set in. Where was I supposed to go? What was I supposed to do? I felt utterly abandoned, as if the ground beneath me had vanished. In my confusion and fear, I called the only person I could think of, my aunt. She'd always been kind to me, but I never expected the lengths she would go to for me. When she answered the phone, I was sobbing too hard to get my words out at first. "What happened, sweetheart?" she asked gently, her voice full of concern. Between gasps for air, I told her everything. Her voice hardened immediately. "Stay there," she said. "I'm coming to get you." It wasn't long before she arrived, storming into our house with a fury I had never seen before. My parents and my aunt got into a heated argument right there in the living room. "What kind of parents throw their child out for not meeting their ridiculous standards?" my aunt demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "This is our house," my father snapped. "We make the rules. She needs to learn responsibility." "No," my aunt said firmly. "What she needs is love and support, not this cruelty. If you can't give her that, then I'll take her." And that was it. My aunt packed my things and took me home with her that night. I'll never forget how I felt sitting in her car as we drove away. I was still shaken, my hands trembling as I stared out the window, unable to fully process what had just happened. But as the city lights blurred past, a sense of relief began to creep in. "You're safe now," my aunt said softly, reaching over to give my hand a reassuring squeeze. Her words hit me like a lifeline. For the first time in years, I felt seen, valued, and protected. She made me feel like I wasn't a failure, like my dreams and passions were worth something. Living with her changed everything. She encouraged me to pursue my creative interests, telling me that the world needed people with vision and imagination. With her support, I started building my skills and eventually turned my passion into a career. My parents may never have believed in me, but my aunt did. And because of her, I was able to prove that I wasn't just a dreamer. I was a doer too. Years went by, and as I worked on my studies, I also developed my skills and tried to find what suited me the most. And I finally did found it. I wasted no time to pick it up and start my very own business. As time went by, small successes and big successes, I started working with popular brands and got invited to TV shows. The more I succeeded, the more I knew this was what I was meant to do. But my parents, as always, stayed out of the loop. It wasn't until I appeared on TV one day that word got around. I guess it finally reached my parents because just a few days later, I was working on another project and had my phone on silent. When I was done with my work, I checked my phone, and to my surprise, there were 6 missed calls from my mom. I was honestly shocked to see her name. It had been years since I'd heard from her. I couldn't fathom why she was calling now, especially after everything that had happened. Hesitantly, I called her back, and she picked up immediately. "Hello?" I said, trying to sound normal despite my confusion. "Sweetheart, congratulations!" she exclaimed, the excitement in her voice almost forced. My dad was likely there with her because he joined in right away asking how I was and what I had been up to. They asked about my life, my health, and eventually about my work. It wasn't until the conversation turned to my finances that things felt off. My dad asked, "How much are you making these days?" I paused, feeling the tension rise. "That's none of your business," I answered flatly. "But we're family," my dad insisted. "Why be shy about it? We helped you grow up, didn't we?" I told him I was doing fine financially, but something didn't feel right. Then, my mom began to talk about how hard things had been for them. "We're retired now," she said. "We've been wanting to renovate the house for a while, but we don't have the savings left. Watching your interview today gave us some hope, though." My heart started racing. I could already feel where this was going. "We thought," my mom continued, "maybe you could help us out with the renovations? Your success could help us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After all these years of no contact, they were asking me for money. "Why are you asking me for help when you haven't spoken to me in years?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I appreciate the congratulations, but I'm not going to help you out." My mom's tone shifted, her voice filled with disappointment. "You're being a bad daughter," she said, her words stinging. "You should support us as family." I felt my blood boil. After everything they had done, this was their approach? The conversation spiraled from there, with my dad jumping in, claiming I owed them. But I couldn't hold back anymore. "If you want my help, there's one condition," I said, my voice cold. "What's that?" my dad asked, suspicious. "If you want me to help, you have to publicly admit that you've always ignored me and never supported me in my career," I said, my heart pounding. "You have to apologize for not being there when I needed you." My dad scoffed, not believing I would make such a demand. "That's unnecessary," he said. "We're family. Why bring this up again?" "I don't care," I said firmly. "This is the condition. You can either admit the truth and acknowledge what you've done, or you can forget about my help." The tension in their voices grew, and my dad's anger flared. "You're being selfish," he yelled. "We raised you. You owe us." I couldn't take it anymore. "You didn't raise me. You kicked me out when things got tough, and it was my aunt who raised me. I owe you nothing." They tried to pressure me further, but I stood my ground. The truth needed to come out. They couldn't just sweep it under the rug anymore. But instead of backing down, they tried calling me over and over again, each time ignored. I started to regret even answering their call. And my friends are telling me I made the right choice. I'm glad I held firm and set that boundary because I know they won't admit the truth. They'll never acknowledge their neglect, no matter how much it hurt me. Today, my parents sent me a message, attempting to guilt trip me. Here's what they wrote. Parents. "Hey, sweetheart, we heard about what you did. You're acting like it's all about you. We asked for your help and you made a huge drama out of it. We've always done our best for you. Why not be there for us?" Reading that message felt like being hit by a truck. How could they be so heartless? It was as if all my pain, all the years of emotional neglect, meant nothing to them. Their words made me realize just how little they understood or cared. I decided it was time to take action. I sat down and wrote an email to my parents, outlining everything I had endured, their pressure on me to ignore my passion, their lack of support, and the ways they failed me. I included my heartfelt feelings, telling them how much their abandonment hurt me over the years. I hit send and waited, knowing everything was about to explode. The fallout from the email has been intense. My parents were furious. Relatives who had never known the full story reached out, apologizing for not being there for me sooner. Some even took my side, which made me feel a bit less alone. The texts from my parents have gotten more hostile and abusive, so I reached out to a lawyer to protect myself. I sent a cease and desist notice, warning them to stop contacting me. It seems to have worked, as they've left me alone since then. My aunt, who has always been my rock, is fully supportive. She's the only one I need in my life right now. It's been 2 months, and my life has taken a turn for the better. My business is thriving, and I continue to be invited to seminars and podcasts, which feels like a big win. I've also started therapy to help me work through all the trauma from my childhood. I'm at peace with my decision. My parents are staying away, and I've never felt more free. I'm focusing on what matters to me now: my work, my health, and my relationship with my aunt. It's time to focus on the future and leave the past behind.